Hi everyone. I just feel I need to say something about the debacle that's been unfolding today. I have 4 grandchildren and they all go to Greenwich Schools. I haven't been able to hug my grandchildren or be in the same room as them since February. I have seen them, but only in the garden or standing outside on the pavement while I'm in my front garden, those kind of things. And that's because for 20 years I've been battling cancer, and I've learned to live with my cancer, and I had a bone marrow transplant, and that's left me extremely vulnerable. And at a time of pandemic, obviously I'm one of the considered extremely vulnerable people, and my consultant told me to start shielding way back in February before everyone else. And so since then I haven't hugged these delightful young people or seen much of them because it's been too difficult. I had been hoping to see them maybe a short while at Christmas, but again, only out in the garden, not actually in the house. But what I was going to do, I've invested in a shed, and I was going to light the chimney and turn it into a fun activity. When the news broke over the weekend and the leader of the council, Dannythorpe, put out that all schools were to close, I was actually quite relieved, because that meant that I would probably be able to see the kids over Christmas, because they wouldn't end up having to self-isolate. What happened to one of the boys, he's in year 9, and they had what's called a pride event at the school, where it's like personal and social and health education, PSHE. So they had the whole of year 9 in the hall, but they didn't socially distance them. And as a result of that one event, they ended up having to send the whole of year 9 home, because so many of them were going off and needing to self-isolate. So they all got sent home for a couple of weeks to self-isolate to slow the spread. So then Dannythorpe puts out his tweet with his letter about his stance about schools should close. And there was a lot of chatter amongst parents and grandparents about what was going to happen. And I kept saying, no, they'll do the right thing. No, let's just wait. Let's not jump. Let's just wait. And it turned out that what was going to happen was all the state schools were closing, but the academies were staying open. What? And this is why I tried to fight the school becoming an academy in the first place, because they're not accountable. So what you've got, when we looked into it, the chief exec of the academy spoke to his mates at the Department for Education, where he'd previously worked, and he has good relationships, and he's using their advice to say they don't need to close the school. But yet local authority health specialists and Public Health England had all said it was a good idea to close the schools. But academies do their own thing and they can do whatever they like, so they decided they were going to stay open. So that really infuriated me. Then you've got the added debacle that most of Basildon schools are closed. Well, why aren't the government coming down on them like a ton of bricks? They're already closed. My sister's grandchildren's school in Sussex closed. Schools in Maidstone closed. Schools all over the place are closed. But it seems the difference here is that Dannythorpe decided to be open and public about it. And that seems to have infuriated central government, who've come down like a ton of bricks and threatened legal action for something which is about keeping people safe. I am just astounded. And then Danny does the right thing and he says, I can't justify spending public money on fighting this in the courts. And so he then has to go back on what he said, and even though he says he doesn't want to and he doesn't think it's the right thing to do, but he has to follow the rule that the government sent in order to comply and be legal. So we've got public schools are closed, the fee-paying schools. Eton closed earlier anyway because of COVID. So if you've got money, you can close your school, and you can close your school earlier, and that's fine. That means you'll be able to, within the guidelines as they are around Christmas, you'll be able to spend Christmas with your family. If you have the misfortune to have children or grandchildren in academies, you're not given that protection and you're not given that opportunity, and you may therefore not be able to have your Christmas. But worse than that is you might actually be putting people's lives at risk, because those children, as we know, do pass on the virus. And then what happens, they might not have any symptoms, but if they passed it on to me, I would very likely die. Now, I fought for 20 years to stay alive, and at the moment my life depends on all of you doing the right thing, wearing masks, keeping your distance, following the social distancing, washing your hands, rule of 6, meeting outside, I've not had people in the house. It's common sense, but it's very hard when I have been responsible for my own healthcare for 20 years, and I have come close to death a couple of times, but because I've been so determined to keep going, I've kept going. But now I have to hand that over, that precious thing, my life, to everyone else, and say, you have to now keep me safe, because I can't stop you giving it to me, because of course I want to see my grandchildren. Even though I will keep social distance, I won't hug them, and it will be outside, but there's always that chance. And will you, those of you that are pushing for kids to continue in education, will you look them in the eye next year when they're crying and they can't attend their lessons because they can't concentrate, because they think they've killed their nan? Will you be proud of the fact that you managed to keep your school open? There is so much more to life than, exam results. We had Ofsted today saying these children must be at school, every day is precious, blah, 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 blah. Of course it is, I agree with that. I'm an educator. I do believe in the power of education. It not only empowers you, it can change and transform your lives, and it's a really important thing. But kids that have cancer, that end up having a year out or 2 years out, catch up. This is something that affects everyone. Let's just put 2020 to one side, and then let's start again once we've all been vaccinated enough and it's safe to go back out into the big wide world. Education is not the be-all and end-all. And what really makes me mad is it's all about money in the end, because Dannythorpe said he would have challenged the decision if it wasn't for the fact that he can't spend public money on a legal thing. If he had more money, he would challenge it, because it's wrong what's being done. Educators and head teachers know when they need to close their schools. The government needs to stop playing politics on this. This is people's lives we're messing with. People are dying because of the decisions we make. I know it's not easy for anyone, and I know we're in a difficult time, and I know all governments around the world are making these awful decisions. But let's not fight each other to make political gain. Let's not pit the local authority against central government for political gain. Please, just remember this grandmother from Greenwich who wants to see her grandchildren but wants to do it in such a way that she still might live long enough to see them leave school. Sorry, I just needed to have that rant, everybody. And I apologise for the rant, but I am just beyond mad at this situation. I do not understand it. And my daughter has taken a brave decision not to send the kids to school for these last days in order to keep them safe and to be able to hopefully see us. So whatever you're doing out there, just stay safe and look after the people you love.